Do you want to know more about making loads for your in-scale freight cars? Why don't you stick around and watch this segment and see how we did it here on the Sailhurst Secondary. Hello everyone, Joe from Central Jersey Conrail and N-Scale. Welcome back to another segment of the Paint Shop. So this time, we're going to be working on some scrap loads for our gondolas that go over to Continental Steel in Sayreville. So, you know, I wanted to make a removable load that I could bring scrap in and then after the session quickly unload them with the magnet and, you know, get them ready for the next turn. Okay, so we're going to be using an old school technique. I got this at a model railroader back in the 90s for my early days of model railroading. And what it involves, you take some aluminum foil and you paint it up and then you throw it into a blender to make some simulated scrap. So again, here's my disclaimer. You know, I want to do as much as I can by myself. So, you know, I kind of like the do-it-yourself fashion because I like to be able to say, hey, I did that myself. It makes me, you know, makes me happy. You know, a lot of people have recommended, you know, there's plenty of commercial loads available out there. I know Hayes Brothers been mentioned a bunch of times. I've looked into it. I'm not going to lie, I actually have a couple of their scrap loads on order already, just so I can do some comparison of how my loads look compared to theirs. You know, I'll try to fit that into this segment depending on if they get here in time. I don't know what the ship time is. So, you know, that's just my little disclaimer. But in the meantime, we're going to continue on with our do-it-ourself scrap loads. So, why don't you sit back, watch, see how we did it. Okay, so I'm going to start out here. I'm going to lay out my foil in my spray booth, and then I'm just going to select a bunch of different colors of rattle cans that I have and just randomly spray it on there and let it dry up. So the reason I'm doing this is because I just want to give the appearance that this was once steel, maybe cars or appliances or something that had some kind of color. And then we'll airbrush the rust over top of it to, you know, kind of blend it in. So once I do the one side and let it dry for a good amount of time, I'm going to flip it over and I'll paint the other side. So this way there's paint on both sides of the foil. Okay, so once the foil's dry, I'm going to bring it upstairs. I'm going to put it in my blender. I'm going to fill the blender halfway full of water. The water acts as an agent to make sure that the foil blends smoothly. So just don't overfill it because when you go to blend, it'll shoot out the top. So just blend on whatever speed you feel like choosing, and there's no set amount of time. Just keep an eye on the foil. When everything looks like it's all consistently blended, then you're done. Now, once you're done blending, get a strainer, dump the fluid into the strainer so you can catch all the foil, and then lay it out on some paper towels and let it dry for, I let mine dry for a good 24 hours. You don't want it to be moist because then when you're trying to glue it together, it won't work. And here's the finished product. Alright, so we're going to get started on the scrap loads for our gondolas. The two gondolas that I'm using, this is a Athearn, and this one is a Microtrains. So we're going to be using those two different models. So what the plan is, so you saw I already made up my scrap steel. That's upstairs drying. I'm going to start making the floors to insert into the gondola. So I'm going to use 30,000 styrene sheet as our base, and so I'm going to cut it out so it fits down in the gondola. All right. So the plan for this, all I'm going to do is I'm going to just trace it out and cut it. Like that. Score and snap. Okay. So as you can see, way too big. We gotta take a bunch off, but I'd rather trim it down than not have enough and have to start over. Really close, so I'm not gonna mess around with trimming anymore because I'll make it too I'll make the cut too much and we'll have a gap. I'm just using emery board. That fits in there pretty good. So we'll make another one for the Athearn car. Again, we're really close, so I'm just going to take and file this down. And there you go. So that fits down in there pretty good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to glue the nut to the insert. So what the plan is to put this nut in here and then kind of bury it with the scrap steel that we've made. So it kind of camouflages it. Now the other thing to realize is these are specific because they're different dimensions on these gondolas. So once this all dries up and I paint it, I'll mark underneath which car it goes to, so this way I can just keep track of them. Okay, so because these inserts are white, I want to put a little paint on them. So I'm going to use some burnt sienna, acrylic paint, and just lay it down in there and then let it dry so we have a good base coat. There you go. I'll let that dry up. Okay, so I painted the bottoms, the inserts for the gondola loads for scrap, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to start putting our scrap load on. So the plan is I'm just going to put some white glue on there, and I'll put a layer of the shredded material. And you know, I did the material, and I took the time to paint it. A lot of the paint came off when I blended it, but you can still see in there is still some color. So it gives you an idea that it's not just all silver metal. It gives you some color. But I'm not concerned about that because we're gonna spray it with some rust paint and all that stuff. So kind of I want to get it to blend. So you see some color and some rust, because don't forget, when they shred this steel and they put it into GONS, by the time halfway through its shipment, it's already rusted out. So that's kind of what we're trying to get here. So all right, so let's get started. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to get a good layer of glue on there to get the stuff to stick into. Put some on top of that nut so we can cover that up. So now, once I got it all in there, I'm going to put a layer of glue on the top. Real thin, and let it fall down in between. Alright, we'll set that aside and let it dry. Okay, so our loads are all dried up. What I ended up having to do was to test fit them in each car and file down the sides with the emery board. And what ended up happening is that the Elmer's glue doesn't hold that well, and it broke loose from the plastic. I mean, the pieces of aluminum foil, it's like a big block, and so that stuck together. So I just ended up crazy gluing them back to the piece of plastic. So now it's all set. We're going to put it in the paint booth, and we're going to spray it with some Acufix rust, and we'll see how it comes out. All right. Okay, so while we're down, we've got the airbrush all set up. This one car is kind of new, doesn't have any weathering on it, so I'm going to go ahead and weather this up real quick. Put a spray of some rust on the outside, and then we'll touch it up with some powders. I'm going to do the inside real good so that looks more realistic. So when the load's not in there, it looks good. Okay, so did some airbrushing, and loads look pretty good, I think, after a little airbrushing. That was some shadows from my airbrushing, so I'll just touch up some powders. This load came out pretty good as well. Looks really good. So we're going to dress it up and get it ready to drop in the cars. What I'm doing here is I'm going to take some Bragdon powders. I'm going to use their oxide red. Just try to give it, it's a little different color than what we've used. To just give everything a little different hue. Give it a real dry look. Take my gondola here, the Conrail one, get some powders in there, make that look a little messed up. Gotta remember, these gondolas, they get beat up in these scrap yards, so take our other car that's all dried up, hit the inside of that. I'm bringing a different tone. Just going to vary it up a little. Okay, so there you go. There's the finished product. I think it looks great. A little overloaded, I agree. I can say that, but overall it looks really good. There we go. Okay, so there we go. That's how we made our scrap loads. Overall, I'm really happy about them. I mean, the cars came out really good. They look great, and they even come out too. So they're easily removable between sessions. They drop back in. The one gondola, the Conrail one, it's a little overloaded looking, but that's okay. We'll just run with it. Overall, I think it was a great little project using that old school technique from Model Railroader. Just blending up those that foil in the blender. I mean, as you watched the video, you saw a lot of the paint came off. But however, it did, when it crinkles up together, you can see all those little crevices down below. They retain that paint color, so there's a little definition to it. So when you layer in your paint colors, it looks more realistic and it's more appealing to the eye. So I would definitely go ahead, even though a lot of the paint comes off, I'd go ahead and take that extra step. It just makes it look that much better. So, again, with the scrap loads, a lot of people were recommending commercially available loads. Definitely. But I believe it came out really well. It was an enjoyable little project. It took 3 evenings, to get, in between layering. The thing about the foil, when you laid it on the piece of plastic, is you had to use the the Elmer's glue and just layer it and layer it. It may not come out in the video, but I had to put 3 or 4 applications of Elmer's glue and let it drip down in between to get it all to fuse together. And I think that's the key when you're doing this. Not just put like a layer on the plastic and sprinkle it on, because it's not going to hold. Just gotta keep laminating it is a good way of putting it. And it came out, it's rock solid. They did pop off the plastic when I was trying to file them to fit down in. However, I crazy glued them together, and they're very solid now. So taking the block that was laminated with the Elmer's glue and crazy gluing it to the plastic, it's all nice and solid. And the magnet in the middle, we were able to hide that with the foil so we could be able to pick it up. So overall, a great project. I'm very happy with the outcome. I did order some loads from Hayes Brothers, so I'll take a look at them when they come in. I was hoping they were going to get here by the end of the video, but yeah, it didn't work out. So we're just maybe we'll revisit that at a later point. But great project to try. It's a lot of fun, and hey, you can say I did it myself. So that's all I have for you this time on the Paint Shop. So if you're watching this for the first time, please subscribe to the channel, because we've got a lot of content like this coming up soon. Throw me your likes, put up your comments. Let's hear what you think about these loads. How do they look? What does everybody think? Time versus money. We're looking at like $3 for a load, and we're looking at 3 evenings of my book fun. This is what model railroading is all about. So leave me your thoughts. So that's all I got for you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Central Jersey Cotton Rail and Inskill. Thanks.